Hello and welcome back. This is Paolo, your host. This is Conversation Artificial Intelligence. Today, we're going to talk about something that is not really artificial intelligence, but is extremely important for whoever is in this field. So the fact is that artificial intelligence is an emerging technology. There are emerging companies, startups, they're trying to sell their product in the marketplace. A lot of them are B2B startups. There are a lot of engineers, technologists, data scientists, product managers that are trying to convince their management to use data science or use artificial intelligence to solve some of the business problems. And all of these people have tremendous amount of problems to either win the sale in the marketplace or convince their executives about going in a direction rather than another direction with artificial intelligence. So I thought that would be a great idea for one time to go and look what it takes to really sell a new idea, an idea about a new technology, an idea about a new process, an idea about leveraging something that is emerging in an established company. I saw that a lot of people coming on this very video struggle with this. People in the Silicon Valley area, a lot of startups, I see that when they pitch, they really are too technical, too focused on features, and have a difficulty in explaining what it is that they do for the general public or for a prospective buyer. With me today, we have Ryan Staley, who is the VP of Sales at Flexiprint and is a veteran in the B2B sales space. Hello, Ryan. How are you today?
Hello. Fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it is a very great pleasure for me having you here. So before we go in anything that's to do with the details of how you commercialize a new technology or how you sell a new idea, I want to ask you a very simple question. How did you get into this, I would say, multi-decades sales career?
How I actually got into sales is it's kind of a unique story. I had multiple jobs when I was younger. I was worked at a shoe store. I worked at a nursery. I was a busboy and I was even paper boy. I was a paper boy multiple times over. And I was really trying to find something because my parents worked really, really hard all the time. But I just didn't feel that their pay was equitable for the amount of work that they did. So one day when I was on my way home from being a busboy, I was driving home. I was about 16. Was driving a station wagon with wood grain siding, kind of like Clark W. Griswold for Christmas Vacation. So pimply faced teenager, as you can imagine. And I saw a sign. Now, granted, at the time I was only making $3.75 an hour, so plus tips. So if I had a killer night, I would make $5 an hour, $5.50 an hour. So I saw a sign that said, if you join this sales opportunity, or if you become a salesman, you would make $19.75 per hour. So that, basically that was like a 6x return on what I was doing there. And so I'm like, hey, this is amazing. I can make something based on the results I create versus just the amount of effort I put in. Long story short, I went to an interview. It was very cheesy. It was to sell knives. So I was so excited because they basically offered me the job on the spot. Came home, was really excited, backed out in the parking lot, and actually crashed my car because I was so excited about this opportunity because I was thinking about the thousands of dollars that I can make. Came home, told my parents about it, and basically they kind of shot me down on the spot saying, well, who are you going to sell to? Who are you going to sell these knives to? Because I didn't have any network. I was 16 years old at the time. And so essentially what it kind of came out of that is I told them that, hey, I'm going to sell to your friends. I'm going to have appointments with your friends. I make $19 just by setting an appointment. They said, absolutely no way. So they crushed my dreams right there. And on top of it, I created about $500 in damage in the car because of my excitement. So I didn't end up taking the job. However, from then on out, I pursued sales and it just kind of snowballed from there. So it's been a great experience. And I'm 22 years later, multiple jobs, learned a lot, met amazing people, especially in tech. So excited to talk to you about it and hopefully create value for your audience today.
You have been invited to a number of podcasters and you have a very long career in this area. And often, as I said, we work with people that are more on the technology side, than not necessarily always engineers, but they could be product managers. What it is the one sales secret that you would share, if any?
I would say the number one thing with sales is just asking the right questions and being curious with those questions. And so there's kind of like two ways which you would look at it. One would be about the actual person that you're trying to influence or communicate to. And the second area to focus on would be like, what's the actual business impact or outcome that you're trying to create your solution for? If you ask the right questions, you can really understand what I would say almost like the answers to the test of exactly how that person operates as an individual and what drives them in terms of their values all the way down to how they make decisions. And then when you look at the business case side of it, usually people are evaluated on 3 KPIs from their manager and higher up. So if you understand what those KPIs are or what those important things are in terms of how they're evaluated, how they get paid, how their bonus is, then that'll really shape how to communicate with them and then bring your solution back to solve those areas or augment those initiatives.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now at MPS Print.
Sure. So what we do over at Flexiprint is we essentially sell large managed services agreements to Fortune 500 to Fortune 1000 companies. So companies or examples of customers we have are like Amazon, Whole Foods, Bed Bath & Beyond. We have quite a few other customers ranging across a wide range of verticals outside of just retail, anywhere from manufacturing to professional services. And really what we do is we take something that is actually simple in nature when you look at the components, but then what we do is we wrap a managed services layer around it for how they print internally. And then what we do is there's 3 main outcomes that we typically deliver. One is hard cost reduction, typically from 15 to 30%. We improve service levels by as much as 300%, 400%. And then on top of it, provide them data and analytics so they could make better decisions in terms of how to improve their business.
In this work that you do, can you just tell our audience a little bit about what your role is and how you deal with these many customers?
Sure. So essentially our company is about a $370 million company right now. What my role is I actually grew the business unit that we're in, the enterprise space, with my team from about 2 million in annual recurring revenue to 35 million in annual recurring revenue in about 5 years with about 2 to 3 people. So it's been an awesome journey. And through that process, I've sat through about 10,000 hours of customer meetings. And what I do is I really support my team from a strategic perspective, help them identify how to navigate through these large opportunities, influence people at multiple levels within the company, and help them basically change the way that they're doing things, which is challenging when you're looking at really large organizations that have so many silos, departments, and people with them. And so really my job is to help move that deal along, or I should say move that solution along, identify the key pain points, build relationships, and influence it at scale so that we could take down multi-million-dollar contracts with these organizations.
You know, one of the things that we have seen the most in the artificial intelligence world. And so one is a startup is trying to sell into large enterprise. The other one is existing companies that have a service. There's service type of tech service companies that are trying to sell into large enterprises as well. Or you have department inside the large company that is trying to go into a new area and they need to basically to influence their management all the way up to explain the value of artificial intelligence within that company. So Ryan, now what I want to do is really connecting your world of and your wealth of expertise with some of the problems that we see every day. So how do you go about, pitching a new concept, a new product in the enterprise world?
So what I would say is the number one thing to focus on, and it doesn't matter if it's enterprise, if it's B2B, B2C, the number one thing that you need to lead with are results and outcomes. What's the result and outcome that's tangible that your product or solution is going to deliver? People don't buy the plane ticket, they buy the destination when you're talking about a vacation, right? They buy what the end result is versus like, they're not just buying the plane ticket. They're not buying all the travel in between. They're just buying the end result of the happiness of being on a beach somewhere, sitting there drinking a special drink and having great food, When you think at a completely new account, what is the process that you go through? Like, how do you make the first contact? Who do you contact? What do you try to do? Yeah, so kind of how we approach it is, what's happening, it really depends on how large of a ticket or how big of a ticket the item is and how large the contract is, because as you expand into larger total contract value, there's many more people involved. If it's a lower cost solution, then, let's say it's like $10,000, $15,000, you're not going to need as many people involved versus a $10 million contract. So it's really understanding like what that niche is and who it plays to. What's kind of happening is with all the introduction of cloud services that are happening across so many different solutions, it's actually moving the budgets within the organization to the business side of the house. And I think Gartner predicted, I think by 2021, I saw it was either 70 or 80% of the overall IT budget is going to be within the business units. So if I were selling an IT solution, or I should say an artificial intelligence solution, let's say for the folks that are watching today, what I would think about is like, okay, what part of the organization is this going to deliver measurable, tangible business results for? And I would quantify that. And so not only would I quantify that, but understanding who is going to benefit the most from that, because once you do that, you understand whose budget it is. And at the end of the day, the person with the budget usually makes the decision.
So how do they make the first contact?
So let's say I'm a startup and I'm targeting a Fortune 1000 company. Let's say it's an artificial intelligence solution around automating finance procedures within an organization. Let's say it's something as simple as that, right? What you're going to want to do is really understand and quantify what's the potential impact that your solution can have. Is it offloading or eliminating 10 full-time employees? Is it reducing the amount of cost to process invoices, APAR, whatever? And then what you're going to want to do is, once you understand the tangible business outcomes of that, both from a value and a hard cost ROI perspective, you're going to want to approach the person who has the biggest vested interests. So if it's in the AR category, let's say there might be a vice president or a director of AR. And that would be the person you could approach and say, hey, listen, with our solution, we're going to basically, and maybe an example would be for AR, is we're going to speed up the time in which you get your money by 500%, which will free up, $1 million in capital that you didn't have, while also eliminating the need for 5 people to tangibly or manually process different components of that AR process. So once you communicate that versus like all the technical components, then you're going to get people's attention, because that's how those people think.
What do you think needs to be the right staffing? So this is the moment in which they have the first proof of concepts, they've made the first customers, but now they're going into the open sea of trying to systematically sell to cold contacts. What do you think should be the way that they staff their company to do this?
If you're trying to grow like that, you definitely need a combination of marketing and sales. Now, what I would say is it would kind of depend on the dollar amounts you're talking about, because there's different skill sets associated with the size of the solution that you have or you need. So there's 2 components in terms of staffing. One thing I would look at and leverage if I'm going in cold is I would make sure I have at least 3 testimonials. So you have 3 testimonials from those current customers. They could be video testimonials. You want it in video, you could have it in writing. And then that's kind of like a primary platform, even if someone that isn't super business oriented, let's say they're very technical oriented, but not as much on the sales and marketing side, you could leverage your customers to sell for you. So if you just ask them the right questions in terms of like, okay, what's the results and outcomes we delivered? We did X, Y, Z. This company was amazing to work with. We did it in X amount of time. And then you could leverage that in your outreach, your cold outreach to people. And you're going to have a lot more interest because you're not pushing, you're showing benefits that you've delivered to other people. So that's one part of it. The part about staffing, it's going to be dynamic based on what the company is trying to do and how big their solution offering is. But I would say, you definitely got to look at it 2 ways. Marketing is definitely different than it used to be. there's so many opportunities out there, and it doesn't even cost a lot of money. It's really just material focus and time. And so you could do that across social media. There's a lot of opportunities, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, and other areas, depending on where your audience lives, to leverage someone that doesn't even need to be super expensive. And then when you're talking about on the sales side, once again, you're going to generate that interest and that branding from that providing valuable content to your potential buyers. And then you have the salespeople follow up, proactively try to get into opportunities and things from there. So that's kind of how I would approach it. It's hard to give you an exact number or an exact formula because there's so many more variables you kind of need to whittle down to sniff that out, map that out. But there are ways in which marketing wise you could do things very cost effectively. Here, I'll give you an example. I was talking to the CEO of a marketing company yesterday, and essentially he spends 2 hours a day on LinkedIn. He creates a video where he's providing valuable content to his audience, and he spends 2 hours of a day on that. What has happened as a result of that is he was able to get a really hot lead a day for a larger ticket item every day he did that. And he's even able to staff up his team by just posting that he's looking for people. So he doesn't need to use recruiters. He doesn't need to do anything else. So there's a lot of unique opportunities if you just kind of understand some of those dynamics.
Let's think of a typical B2B AI startup. Let's say that there are 15 people on board. They're trying to sell a solution. It's a recurring revenue software as a service. It costs anywhere between $10,000 a year to $50,000 a year. Right now, they're staffed with all engineers. Maybe one of their founders was a business development guy. And now they want to, they want to scale this process. So they need a lead generation process. And then they need that's a way to action on those leads. Like, how would you think of a case like this?
Yeah, I would definitely outsource it to an agency then. Like there's people that you could get that are really competent, and you would spend $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month for them, and you could get a ton of leads in a really short period of time. There's even an AI software company that does email based, it's email AI, it's set for appointments. And one of my friends who's the CEO of a software company actually leverages them, and I think he pays like $2,000 a month, and they guarantee 8 appointments a month, with that. So then you're going to need someone on the sales side to execute on the fulfillment of those appointments. But I would definitely outsource that. And there's even ways where you could go online and you could contract people that are really competent, and then you could kind of grow into it instead of just hiring staff. So that's a good way because you want to prove out that those people can execute on what they need to do, and before just hiring someone full time, in my opinion, especially if you're a startup, gives you more flexibility as well.
What are the things that they must not do?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is get crystal clear on who you want to serve, who individually at the company you want to serve, and the exact type of companies. A lot of times people try and overgeneralize, and we do the solution for everybody, but there's riches in the niches if you look at it that way. So you want to be real specific about who you're going to serve. And then the other side of it too is, once again, going back to outcomes and results. What's the outcome and result that your solution delivers versus the speeds and feeds and technical details on it? Because then it gets into technical jargon. People at the level that need to hear your message, it's not going to resonate with them, and they're going to black out. So those are the key points I would say to not do.
And let's suppose we have done everything correct. This hypothetical AI startup has done everything correct, has put together an initial top of the funnel approach for the right person. They have the right engagement. They're able to do a first couple of meetings. They have an awesome presentation. But now it comes to move the process towards the close. Can you, share some of your tips on how to do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, number one tip, this is really simple. A lot of people don't do it, is always connect with that person on the next action step. Always have that agreed upon before you leave the meeting. So if it's a call, if it's a discovery process, if it's a web meeting, I would always do that. So, because what happens is people are so distracted now that if you don't schedule that next meeting with them, you might chase them for months and months and months at a time just to get that. There's so much time and energy allocated in that. I would say that that's one thing to push it forward. The other thing is explain the process on the front end to them in terms of how you get from A to Z and get their agreement. And if you do that, it makes it crystal clear. And then a lot of the IT folks or product managers, you want to almost manage it like it's a implementation, right? So that sales process is like an implementation. So for example, we have a first meeting. Okay, after this first meeting, we do a discovery on your environment, identify all the problems that we could potentially help. And then after that, we're going to have another meeting to review the results of that. And then after that, it's a proposal meeting on the outcomes of that, that analysis work and that strategy, and basically get their agreement on the key milestones and dates for that. You can almost have them sign it in a statement of work as well, so that it adds a little more teeth to it. And then at the same time, schedule that out so that it's really just following along in the process. So that would be the best way I would suggest in terms of moving things forward.
What if after all the efforts, this hypothetical company that we're talking, this AI company, they get to a point where the customer say no?
What I would do is, like, if you're learning, sales is essentially, it's kind of like baseball players, where you could be a Hall of Fame player and you bat 333 your entire career. You're basically 1 for 3. So you have to kind of build in and know that you're going to lose some opportunities, even if you're amazing. I see people that are amazing at their craft. They may have a close rate of 55, 60%, but you have to factor in. So that's where the lead generation and making sure your funnel is big enough that you have some of that. However, what I would always do is debrief on all the losses. What did you do right? What did you do wrong? What could you do better for next time? And if you take that constant and never-ending improvement over time, you'll continue to get better and better if you track your results and your metrics.
How do they find out if they haven't built enough trust?
So trust is built over time, right? It's a combination of doing the little things right over a consistent period of time. It's also about building a relationship with the person. So like I was saying, if you have those 3 testimonials, that'll help with some trust. Then at the same time, it depends how long the sales process is. But if you ask questions and really get to know all the individual players within that account, trust starts to develop organically. Then at the same time, when you're talking about the money aspect and getting later in the process, if I ask you, hey, you want to spend $100,000 with me, we've done great things, you're probably going to say no. But if I say, hey, do you want to spend $100,000 with me and it's going to deliver an ROI of $900,000 within 12 months, then you're a lot more likely to listen to that. Those are kind of examples on what you could do. But trust is a combo of experiences, social proof. You could get even in ratings on your LinkedIn profile, your company page, or other pages for people to put testimonials on there, and then you could refer back to that. The other thing you could do if it's a bigger initiative, and let's say you're stretching yourself, and hey, this is the first $500,000, $1 million deal that you're going to do. You've only done smaller companies before that you have as customers. You could always do a pilot. A no-cost pilot to prove out the business concept, because what we're seeing now is organizations like to over-collaborate, and at the same time, they're risk-averse ever since what happened in 2008. So that kind of breaks down that barrier and say, hey, I could show you tangible business results in a 30 or 90-day period, but then you get their commitment in writing that if the pilot's successful, they'll automatically move forward with the full program. I know that's a lot I threw at you, but those are a bunch of different things that you could do.
If you were the CEO of these small startups and they're very technical sometimes, how would you think about finding a balance between marketing and sales? If, for example, I have to choose, where do I outsource? I outsource to the marketing, but I get some salesperson in my company or vice versa.
If you didn't have a brand and you're just starting off, I would outsource the marketing component, because there's so many experts in this space, and there's not a massive amount you would need to spend to achieve that. And if people do it right digitally, you can get big really fast with your online presence. So I would do that. Sales, I would insource, and I would identify a great sales leader that's had a proven track record in results selling, a similar type of technology or AI, or if they didn't have any of that experience, I would identify someone that had the experience selling more cutting edge or selling to the verticals that you want to specialize in. So there's a couple different ways, but essentially, I mean, if you look at that, that's one outsourced position and one in-source position to start. And then the sales group, you're going to want to identify the leader, have that leader kind of grow the company as time goes on, because the marketing, you could always spit more money into that and get to the point where you're like, you could identify every dollar I put in, I get $4 out of customers. But with the sales side, there's a lot. I don't think I would ever outsource my sales as an organization. There's just too valuable, too much going on in there, and marketing, there's a lot of people that you can outsource to that. So that would be my kind of approach.
What are your tips for this class of people trying to get $1 million budget from a company that does $300 million in revenue?
Yeah. So in terms of achieving that, kind of how I would look at it is like every organization is, I wouldn't say every, there's really a few amount, but 99% of organizations are built around helping create shareholder value. So I don't want to say it's all about the money, but in a lot of cases, that's what drives most organizations. So if you're a product manager and you have a solution that you've discovered something, or you've leveraged AI to do something unique and valuable, the biggest thing you got to do is find out, kind of is almost do two things. And it goes back to kind of what I was saying before. But like, one is what department, what business group is going to benefit the most from this? You know, because essentially you look at it, there's overarching company initiatives that you'll see in like an annual report or the CEO's letter to, you know, what the focus items are for the next year. And then what happens is that gets trimmed down one level below. And if you're in IT, their focus is, you know, they got 3 or 5 primary drivers this year: finance, operations. All these different departments have marching orders of the top initiatives that they need to focus on. So to get someone from like, hey, instead of like, it was kind of like before a car, you know, the first car was invented, you ask people what they needed and they say, hey, we just need a faster horse, right? They weren't thinking differently like that. So in this situation, once again, it goes back to, okay, what's the exact business, tangible business benefit that we will deliver with this AI? It could be AI, it could be blockchain, it could be machine learning, anything, right? Any cutting edge tech. What is the tangible business results that it's going to deliver? And you have to quantify it. You have to quantify the financial ROI and the value ROI. And if you quantify that, it makes it a lot easier to spend $1 million if it's going to create $20 million in revenue. So I would say that's like the biggest thing to sell your solution internally, to do that. So that's half of it. And then also talking to the right person that's going to have the most personal vested interest in that.
When you are inside an organization, there are also in your mind things going on. I mean, this right person is a VP in another department. How am I going to approach it? And what if things go wrong? What would be like your, if you like, more of the relationship tips that you would give to some of these scientists, engineers, and so on? Think of, they're really focused always all the day into solving some kind of complex problem, and they just don't do it. Like, they don't, for the most part, they don't curate relationship for living. They solve problems for living.
Like, human interaction is going to trump email, text, or anything else. You learn so much more, and so many things can be taken out of context with that. So what I've seen people respond really well to is like, and this is massively simple, but before you meet with anybody, you just got to think, what's in it for me from their perspective, and really what would be a home run for them. And then kind of reverse engineer, you know, how your solution is going to make them, you know, look good, solve a massive problem for them that creates a lot of pain, or create massive financial benefits for them. And like, if you think through that lens, and there's so much available free, you could just Google a person's name and you could find out so much about them and what's important to them. If you do that and take that 10 minutes to prepare and understand that, hey, this guy loves the Yankees, he has a family of 2 kids, and he is an outdoorsman who likes to go, I don't know, kayaking. You know, when you first meet with that person, you could try and connect with him on things that that you have in parallel with that. And that's a really easy way to break down barriers. And people appreciate that you prepare and respect their time. So if I went into you and I said, hey, I was doing a little research preparing for my meeting. I noticed that you do a lot of kayaking. I just went kayaking 2 years ago and really enjoyed it. Where do you like to go? And you can almost start it like that. And then instantly that person's like, oh, this guy's like me. He's a decent person. And that breaks down the walls, and usually people will be a lot more open. Now, granted, that's a massively oversimplified version, but that's just a quick tip.
Is there a time that you came up with the meeting and you said, I'm not going to go into this meeting, like I'm not going to go into this customer anymore? Like you were like, no. Either you did something wrong or you were like, oh my God. And how did you come out of it?
I was never naturally good at sales. I kind of sucked at sales initially, to put it bluntly. And so it was just something I had to learn over time. And even when I was younger, I almost have panic attacks when I would meet with people, because I would create such an enormous situation out of something that wasn't nearly as big. So I haven't really bailed on a meeting like that. I've gotten nervous multiple times over. What I always remember, and I talk to my kids about this all the time, is if you have a massive fear about something, if you go towards it, it gets smaller. If you go away from it, it gets bigger. So a lot of times we build up these things in our head that are massive and not even true. And a lot of times if you just take the step and have the courage to do it, amazing things will happen and you'll meet amazing people.
So Ryan, that's a great piece of advice, what I was looking for our audience. So for our audience today, we talked really about how you go and sell your products, or you go and sell your ideas inside your company. And this is an extremely important thing, because artificial intelligence is not going to happen if all these startups not going to sell, or if you are a data science manager or you are a product manager inside an organization and you don't know how to express the value of the thing and get basically the right resources to implement the project. So this was, in my opinion, an extremely interesting and profound insights that we gained today from Ryan. If you have specific questions, please comment below. If you have suggestions for more of this content, please reach out to me. And Ryan, for the time being, thank you so much for being here.
I'll check out the comments too, and I'll try and respond to anything. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn as well. I'm very active on there, and connect with me, and I have a lot of content on topics that we kind of talked about today as well.